Well, good morning there. This is Joe Van Cleave. Welcome to another episode of the Typewriter Video Series. Today's video, we're going to be talking about that all-important subject of typewriter ribbons. Because without ribbons, a typewriter is almost useless. And also, besides ribbons, we're going to be talking about correction tape and one other subject. So stick with us, please. There are a wide variety of typewriter ribbon devices if you look at the entire range of typewriters that have ever been built. But for the common types of typewriters, I've brought out two machines today. One of them is the Olivetti Lettera 22 and the other one is a Hermes 2000. And I'm going to show you on both of these machines how to change the ribbons and a little bit about the ribbon spool mechanism and all that. So we'll start here with the Olivetti Lettera 22. So on the Lettera 22s, you're going to pop off the ribbon cover by pulling up on the two front corners, sliding it backwards, and setting it back here. This exposes the whole ribbon area. The thing with the Olivettis is the spools that the ribbons are on are held on by nuts, okay? And this is a little bit different from a lot of other typewriters, but you're going to basically want to undo these little nuts. Don't lose them. And like that. This particular machine is using the original metal typewriter spools. You can get plastic ones, but basically when you're changing out a ribbon, you want to take each ribbon sits on the shaft of the spindle, and you have the ribbon vibrator mechanism up here in the middle. And what you want to do is you want to unthread the ribbon away from out of the little bracket here. And I know I'm probably blocking your view, but you basically unthread it like that and pull the ribbons out and take them out like that. To put the new ribbon in, you want to, on this Olivetti, you want to have the ribbon toward the back of the machine, and I usually set the spools onto the spindles first. Then I'm going to thread the ribbon so that it's closest to the platen or the paper on the middle of the braces there. And I know the shadow is enabling you not to see it, but basically you're going to slip them down in the little fork there, a little thing, and you're going to kind of flex the ribbon and kind of get it underneath the little the tines, if you will, of the little ribbon bracket there. So it's in there like that. The middle of the ribbon needs to be closest to the platen. Then on these Olivettis, you have a little fork-like device and a little roller. It has to go around. The fork-like device on both ends is for the auto reverse mechanism that reverses the ribbon at the end of the ribbon where there's a grommet. On the left-hand side here, it's the same way. You're going to feed the ribbon through the fork, the auto reversing fork, and around the roller like that, and back onto the spindle. Now these ribbons, or I should say these typewriter mechanisms, most of them are auto-reversing, as I indicated, through the little fork thing. There's a grommet on the end of the typewriter ribbon, and the grommet won't go through the fork. And as the ribbon is moved, the grommet pulls the fork like that and changes the direction of the rotation. So on the Olivettis, after you get the new ribbon put in, you want to put these nuts back on and make sure they're secure. So again, the ribbon has to thread from the spool around the roller, through the fork, through your ribbon vibrator where it's in the middle of the vibrator, it's closest to the platen, back the other way, through the fork again, around the roller to the other spool. And to test the typewriter, keep in mind your fingers are going to be dirty, and if you have light colored keys, you're going to mark them up, so you might want to get some Kleenex and wipe off your fingers first. But to test it, just you can start hitting your type slugs like that, and you'll notice this spool now is turning. And that's what you want. You want to make sure it does turn. Well, that's pretty easy. That's how you change a ribbon in an Olivetti Lettera 22. The ribbon cover goes back on. These two protrusions in the back of the cover go down on the sides. Kind of sits in there like that and like that. That's how you change a ribbon in an Olivetti. Okay, our second typewriter today that we're going to show how to replace a ribbon on is this Hermes 3000. So on the Hermes, you want to first of all move the carriage a little bit to the left so the carriage return lever doesn't interfere with the ribbon cover. And so I have this carriage locked, so I'm going to have to unlock it here. So I'm going to move it to the left, and now this enables me to pop off the ribbon cover. So this is actually a brand new ribbon I put in last night on this typewriter. But on this particular, and a lot of machines like this, they don't have the nuts like the Olivettis do. So this is kind of a universal style of replacement ribbon. And on the Hermes and also a lot of your Olympias, there's a little spring-loaded lever here on both reels, and it serves a purpose of pushing the reel or the pack of ribbon into the spool, keeping it tighter. So you want to first push that out of the way. So those two little levers are out of the way. Then it's kind of a press fit, the center of these new spools. You'll see on the drive gear there is a little pin, and that has to intersect with one of these 6 holes in the bottom of the replacement ribbon. So you just kind of fiddle around with it until it goes in, like that. And again, on this particular machine, you don't have the rollers out here like the Olivetti, but you do have the little fork for the auto reversing. There's one on this side as well. And on the ribbon vibrator, again, the ribbon is threaded so that in the middle of the vibrator, the ribbon is closest to the paper or the platen. And you just pull it up, down, up around those little guides, and it goes like that. So this is a brand new ribbon. I don't want to mess it up too badly. But anyway, you get it, hold your mouth just right, like that. Tighten it up, make sure it goes through both auto reverse mechanisms, and then these spring-loaded little levers, you want to just make sure they go back into place. And that's how you replace a ribbon on a Hermes 3000. Very simple. Now, one other thing I'm going to mention is this is an all-black ribbon, but this machine has ribbon positions for top, middle, and bottom edge of a ribbon, and the blue and the red parts on the indicator are if you have a dual color black and red ribbon. Now, if you're using an all-black ribbon like I am, most typewriters only give you 2 positions, an up and a down. In other words, the top edge and the bottom edge. But you can get twice the use out of a ribbon on a black ribbon. When the top edge or the black edge starts to get weak, what you can do is take the ribbon spools out and flip them over and put them back in. And what you're doing is you're moving the bottom edge to the top, and then you keep it on the black or blue setting and you continue using it, and you get a whole nother use out of the ribbon. These Hermes give you the other option of using the middle of the ribbon, which is what their yellow position is. So again, you can get twice the use out of a typewriter ribbon simply by flipping it around after it's begun to wear out. So that's the Hermes 3000. So how can you tell if your typewriter ribbon needs replacing? Well, if you're used to the more modern electronic type typewriters or the electric like IBM Selectrics or any of those kind that use the cartridge ribbons, which is a clear plastic film coated with a carbon-like toner type of ink, you'll know that those are one pass only. That every time a letter makes an imprint, it peels off the black coating and leaves a clear part of the ribbon behind, so you can't type over it. But cloth typewriter ribbons, as used in manual typewriters, the ink spreads itself out throughout the fabric of the ribbon. And so it'll continue to be used. You can use it over and over again, back and forth, which is why they have the auto reverse mechanisms in these typewriters. But you'll notice when the imprint begins to be a little bit fainter, that it's time to perhaps change the ribbon, or at least if you're using an all-black ribbon, you can take the ribbons and you can flip them over, right? So the right spool goes upside down on the left side and vice versa. So what you're essentially doing is using the other edge of the ribbon, if you've been using the black selection on your ribbon selector. So that gives you the ability to get twice the use out of a ribbon. But even so, eventually you're going to run out of life of a ribbon. That's how you know it's time to replace it, when the imprint starts to get light. Keep in mind, analog type of machines like manual typewriters, they tend to fail gracefully. And that is especially true with ribbons. It's not a logical 1-0 function with ribbons. They will just slowly get fainter and fainter, and that's when you know it's a subjective decision on your part. Hey, this is not really as dark as it used to be. I think I'm going to change my ribbon now. So we've talked about ribbons, making a mark on your paper. Now we're going to talk about the very opposite, which is how do you erase those marks on the paper if they're the wrong marks, if you've typed the wrong letter or whatever. In the classic era of typewriters, there were several ways. One of those was using these little plastic film rectangles or tabs coated with a white coating. You would slip it into the typewriter right in front of the mistake that you had made, and you would retype the same mistaken letter, and it would transfer a white film on top of the black ink and hide it. Those worked okay, but the problem is that the white material would flake off the plastic tab and into the machine and dirty up your machine. The other common method was if you used a special kind of typing paper called erasable bond. It was a harder paper that didn't take quite as dark of an imprint. You could use a hard typewriter eraser, and you could erase most of the ink off, and then they usually had a brush that you brush the crumbs away, but typically those eraser crumbs got inside your machine also, and those are really bad for machines. The third way that erasing took place was using the liquid whiteout correction fluid. That's really bad. It dirties up the machine. It makes an ugly mark on the paper. If you don't wait long enough for it to dry, if you try retyping in the same spot, you're going to get that white crud in your type slugs of your machine. So that's not really a good way to do it. Luckily, these days, we have these correction tape cartridges. And there are a bunch of different brands, but there's two general shapes that you can find. The most common shape is more of a round shape or an oval shape. It's kind of fat and round, and it has a short length to it. But I like this particular body style. This is actually Bics Whiteout brand, and I like it because it's skinnier and it's longer, and you can get it down in the machine a little bit easier where you're trying to make the correction. So I usually buy these in 4-packs at my local office supply store, and I always keep one with me. So this is how I erase my mistakes with the manual typewriters. Okay, the third subject I'd like to talk about this morning is taking these portable typewriters out into the field somewhere. I've done this a lot over the years. And one of the things I noticed when I was typing on the beach in California with my Royal Mercury was the ocean breeze tended to blow my paper forward and cover up my view of the paper. What I did out in California was I simply had to turn my chair around so I wasn't looking at the ocean anymore, and the ocean breeze would push the paper away from the front. But that was less than ideal, because if you're typing at the ocean, you want to be able to look at it, right? So what I really found works pretty good is these metal bulldog clips, those metal spring-loaded clips that you use for binding papers together. They're made of metal, they're heavy, and when you thread your paper in the machine, you can, as the paper is short up here, you can clip the bulldog clip onto the back of the paper, the bottom of the paper, and the weight of it will keep it pushed down, pulled down behind the machine. Then as you're typing and as the top of the paper comes up to a certain length, you can transfer the bulldog clip to the top of the paper, and again, the weight of that clip keeps it pushed back behind the machine, and there's enough weight there that usually it resists all but the strongest wind. So again, a little trick for typing out in the field where you're going to always have a little bit of a breeze at least. Use a bulldog clip to weight down the edges of the paper. So those were 3 topics we covered today. Ribbons, how to replace them, correction tape, and using bulldog clips to weight down your paper when you're typing outdoors. This is Joe Van Cleave from Altura Park in Albuquerque. You have yourself a great day.